This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 351 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. This is part 2 of the Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 series. Before we begin, I'd like to pay my respects to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, where I'm recording this podcast today. So, welcome back to the Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 series. This is a monthly series where I'm revisiting the most impactful trip of my life, the one that gave me the travel bug very badly, and we're doing it now because it happened 40 years ago this year. Yep, way back in the 80s. During the Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 series, I'm going to be reliving a 6-month budget motorhome trip my family took around Western Europe when I was just 9 years old. I've been able to interview my dad to help me with this, and also I have my late mum's travel diaries from the time, plus our family photo albums and my own sometimes flawed childhood memories. But along with reliving these memories of such a life-changing trip, I also want to talk about how travel memories impact us, what's changed and what hasn't changed in the world of travel over these past 4 decades, and also why taking your kids travelling is always a good idea. Big thanks to my parents for doing it. Before we start, I want to say a huge thanks to the sponsor of this series, Context Travel. They've been operating walking tours in cities around the world since 2003, have been a certified B Corp since 2011, and they find really interesting and qualified subject matter experts to take you on a very special tour. More from Context Travel during the episode. So part 1 of the Van Life Diaries took us from Australia via Hong Kong to England and on to France, where we had a lot of fun driving our motorhome on the wrong side of the road. But time went on and we got used to that. So in today's episode, we have a brief visit to Spain, and then we move on to heaps of fun times in Italy and Greece. So first up, Spain. I actually don't have any particular memories of Spain from that age, although I've been back in the intervening years to Barcelona, thinking I was visiting it for the first time, if I'm honest. My dad's memory, fortunately, is better than mine. In this photo album, there is two single photographs of Spain. What do you recall from this brief experience in Spain?
Well, it was very much off-season, and we ended up in a camper ground, and apart from one other group, we were the only ones there.
Oh, right.
And of all the people, I met an unknown then colleague of mine who came from Tasmania.
A bank person. No way.
Yeah. Crazy.
What are the chances?
Yeah, great. But the thing that I do remember mostly was the plantations of eucalypt trees.
Oh.
Acres and acres and acres of them. I don't know what they did with them.
Yeah.
Probably for wood chips.
Oh, amazing.
If anything, perhaps they just were horticulturally minded.
I do remember that my mum didn't particularly enjoy Spain, and her diary mentions several caravan parks that didn't have hot water, which was enough to earn her dislike, I'm afraid. I don't think my sister and I cared much, but now as a middle-aged woman, I can really understand my mum's desire for a daily hot shower. Anyway, her diary records Spain thus. Drove to border of Spain and through, no problems. On to San Sebastian. Bit like Hong Kong with a washing, millions of people in high-rise flats. Took a wrong turn and went through Liza, very mountainous country. A bit like New Zealand and really pretty. After that, on to Pamplona and Zaragoza. Met Bill and Coral Tabbitt, bank people from Tasmania. Nice to chat to them. Decided to go on to Barcelona early. Caravan park open, but very ordinary, although on coast. Pool not open and all green. No hot water, so I have had Spain. Back to France tomorrow. A quick fact check on my mum's claim of millions of people in high-rise flats in San Sebastian. It would seem that the population of San Sebastian has been just under 200,000 for many decades. Sorry, Mum. Bit of an exaggeration. We did indeed, though, drive back into France, but we quickly moved on to our next country, Italy. You can tell from my mum's diary entry from our first day in Italy that, thankfully, she seems, on the whole, more satisfied. On to border, no problems in Italy. Bought coupons for petrol and drove on. Finally stopped at Varazze and shopped. Lovely. Very little streets and lovely interesting shops. Beautiful fresh pasta shops. On further and stopped for night just on from Varazze on the top of a mountain. Fabulous views and quiet from traffic. Showers as usual, hopeless. Kids and I agreed to give them a miss. Oh dear, so caravan parks and their showers were still a problem. But on the whole, I do really remember us all enjoying Italy. One of my really strongest memories is visiting Pisa and, of course, seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I asked my dad if he remembered going up the tower with me.
Yes, it was a terrible sensation with the gradient going the wrong way. Your body wants to do this and the gradient says no, thank you.
I still remember that too. I think only you and I went up.
Yeah, that probably would be right.
And I remember, in my memory, we went, I think there's like 8 levels and we went to about the 5th level and then I'd had enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because it's super weird.
What I do remember is that it was nowhere near as commercial as it is now. It's just covered now, but there was very, very little there. Times move on.
On the topic of Pisa, my mum's diary actually reveals something quite funny about our knowledge at the time. I didn't realise this. She writes, stopped at Pisa at lunchtime. Super tourists were not sure if Leaning Tower was in Pisa or Rome. Saw it by accident as we were leaving van and off we went to it. To me, it was fabulous, most interesting to see, more so than Eiffel Tower, etc. From there we headed to Rome, then Pompeii and Naples. My mum's diary explains our day out in Rome, which included visiting the Vatican. Sleep in and off to Vatican City PM. Bus is strange. Only single seats down one side. All stand in middle. Never pay. Some buy tickets prior but can't buy on bus. Vatican, interesting, but Pope could clean it up a bit. Rome generally very grotty, more than any other city. On way home, met 2 couples from Australia. Very nice couples staying at Caravan Park too. I'm only including a tiny portion of these, but it's very lovely to see that my mum's diary entries frequently mention other travellers we've met. I think caravan park life really does lend itself to that, and we seem to make connections in almost every place we stayed. Some of them I still actually remember really well, and I wrote to an American girl we met, Sarah, for years as a pen pal. We travelled on through Italy, and on the May Day holiday we had one of those classic things go wrong travel days, one that remained legendary in our family lore. My dad explains here what happened.
We were needing money for fuel.
Right.
And the only way we could end up getting some fuel, we ended up in a little town called Potenza. Yeah. And so we left the camper van down the bottom of the hill, walked up, and we were then lost. Some policemen found us, I think, took us off somewhere to their office. And I remember when they put us in their car, there was a pistol lying on the passenger seat in the rear. Quite unusual, I thought.
Very unusual for us.
Anyway, they managed to, within themselves, exchange $50 US for some lira, and we were able to move on. Now, the reason why we were so short on for cash and fuel was that when we arrived there, it was a public holiday and there was no banks open to get cash.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem. That's why we ended up at Potenza, which, of course, is right on the top of a hill. There's nothing else around it, really.
Right.
It's just all on the top of the hill.
So did we leave the van at the bottom because we were running so low on fuel, or?
No, I don't think we were that low. That was the way it worked.
It seemed easier than...
But then, of course, the copper, or the carabinieri, agreed to take us down to the bottom of the hill where our camper van was.
Uh-huh.
But we couldn't remember where it was. So the non-driver sort of gritted his teeth and grimaced, and eventually we got there.
I forgot that bit.
It's funny now, but at that time it was less than fun.
I still remember being a bit scared. I remember climbing in the back and seeing the pistol. So, yeah. That was a pretty memorable moment for a 9-year-old who'd never seen a gun in her life. So, my mum's version in her diary entry about this day adds a couple of extra facts. No camping at Potenza. Hard to find centra. up an enormous hill. Finally asked Carabineria and directed to office. Officer spoke a little English, and we eventually cashed with them Fitz's US $50 note that he had given to Amanda and got 100,000 lira. Hooray! And then they were going to escort us to petrol station, very helpful. Called in driver and, wow, did we have trouble finding van again. Finally did, and they took us to petrol station and on road to Brindisi. We did laugh later. Thanks again to Context Travel for sponsoring this episode. They run walking tours in all 3 of the countries we're reminiscing about today. If I were to go back now, I'd be joining Context for a visit to the Colosseum in Rome with a historian, or touring around Athens with Panos, an archaeologist, or seeing some of my favourite buildings in Barcelona, several of Antoni Gaudi's colourful constructions in the company of a Gaudi art historian. To top it off, I wasn't looking for this kind of experience when I was younger, but now the aperitif food tour featuring local Venetian cocktails and snacks sounds like a great way to finish off a travel day in Venice. So we got to Brindisi, which is where we met a very special British couple who we met up with several more times over the course of our time in Europe. My dad and I chatted about these friends, who we called Pookie and Jean. I don't know why he was called Pookie.
No, I don't.
Did she call him Pookie too?
Don't remember that. I suppose so.
Mm.
Otherwise, we would have used his original name. If
Yeah,
you had one.
yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Did they go to Greece regularly or something? Or
Yes,
they were...
and every year he'd been there with the British troops during 1943-44.
Oh,
And,
wow.
he liked the district, liked the area.
Mm-hmm.
Came back every year, their annual holiday in an old van with a big gas bottle in the back to cook their fish and chips, or chips alone, I think. I think Pookie wouldn't eat unless he had chips.
Oh, right. So we intentionally met up with them in Igoumenitsa?
No, we met them at Bari in the caravan park there.
And they told us where they were going in Greece.
Yes, and they explained that they sometimes would park their van to avoid paying a fee. They would park their van on a wharf or jetty.
Ah.
So we wandered off one evening or late afternoon, and lo and behold, there they were on this jetty. They encouraged us to go to Igoumenitsa,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we did. We spent a few days there.
I remember it was lovely there.
Yeah, a good holiday within a holiday.
My mum's diary gives us some more details about our time in Igoumenitsa as well. Friday, 3rd of May. Arrived at Igoumenitsa about 9:30am. Off quickly and all into town to shop. Then lunch on dock and off to spit of land with trees and beach to free camp. Cool day, but finally all Kendalls had a swim. Very refreshing. Pookie brought out his accordion and played Waltzing Matilda on beach. Locals came down. Boy with woolen hat must have thought we were crazy, enjoyed it. Dinner with Jean and Pookie. Saturday, 4th of May. Up late and run on beach, really lovely, will be nice sunny day. We went into town of Igoumenitsa. Nice town, little shops, interesting. Met up with Jean and Pookie and had souvlaki with a beer for lunch. Then on to cake shop for a cake each and water, really interesting. A lovely swim again and a barbecue on the beach, all very relaxed after a couple of days here. Free camping, no trouble, more relaxing. Apart from us having a great introduction to Greece via our new friends, Jean and Pookie, it was just a country that all of us liked. And as we looked through our photos, I asked my dad what he liked about Greece.
It was the ocean and fish, things like that interest me.
It was more similar to Australia than
I think
places
so.
we'd been.
I felt comfortable there, perhaps. And I notice here there's a photograph of June and the girls at Olympia. Yes, it was interesting. So I think you girls ran some distance there to say you'd done it.
Not a marathon, though.
No, it was not a marathon. No, that's where we first came across with farm implements being used to pull trailers off to town with, in this case, it was a rotary mower and a trailer off to go do the weekly shopping, I think. Quite amazing.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
There was also a three-wheeler, as these things were, turned over off the side of the road. No one was injured, and the driver, with some help, just pushed it back onto its wheels, and he drove off.
I just can't believe they did have those three-wheeler cars and utes and stuff, because it seems like they're going to be really wobbly, right?
Well, it wouldn't be the safest thing.
What else have we got?
The Corinth Channel. I thought that was a brilliant piece of engineering with such sheer faces on the canal.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was a surprise to me to think that the first snow we saw in our lives was in Greece.
Yes, yeah, I agree. It's not what I expected.
And it wasn't very much, to be fair.
Just a little patch. Yeah.
But for people who'd never seen snow ever.
Yeah, it was quite exciting.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, my mum's diary brings us back full circle as we'd had a couple of weeks driving around Greece, but we had to return to our beloved Igoumenitsa to get the ferry back to Italy. And my mum wrote, "To Igoumenitsa, Amanda and Zoe whooped when saw sign. 2 weeks ago since we were here. We are pleased to be back but have enjoyed Greece. Run on beach, lovely day, into shop and special cakes. Out for a drive and lunch in hills. Back home for swim. Barbecue tonight. Hope to see fireflies again. Lovely quiet night for barbecue. Sunday 19th of May. Our last early morning walk at Igoumenitsa Beach. Pretty and peaceful place. A short drive and lunch then back for a swim. We are down to our last 18 drachma. So we'll have some souvlaki and a promenade tonight prior to early 6 a.m. on board ferry tomorrow for Brindisi." I've not been back to Greece at all since my childhood, but I still dream of this little spot. I just think of it with such warmth in my heart. I think my dad's mention of it being like a holiday within a holiday was just right. Like we could relax and have fun. And it was also pretty similar to the kind of holiday we'd have back home in Australia. And especially it had a good sandy beach. And we were over 2 months into our trip by this stage. We probably needed a little bit of a break. Now, just to round out this episode covering Spain, Greece and Italy, I need to mention that on our way back up through Italy, headed on to our next destination, we made a stop in Venice.
Venice, yeah. We didn't spend much time there. We had to go there to a bank, and there was the female star of Are You Being Served was in the banking chamber. I didn't make ourselves known to her.
No, that's right.
But,
well, also, I can't remember her actual, but her name on the show was Mrs. Slocum. Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know her real life name. But yes, because I feel like we had to wait in that bank for quite a while.
Yeah, yes. Like most banks over there.
Right.
That time.
Yeah, that's the part I remember about Venice, not the rest of it.
We did go to the Murano glass factory.
Yes.
Where the salesman was pretty smooth.
Oh, no, really?
But eventually we got out without loss of blood or money.
The parts you remember of a trip are just never what you'd expect, right? I can fully remember sitting in that bank like it was yesterday. I could describe the whole interior of the bank. And by the way, if you didn't grow up watching British TV from the 70s and 80s, the actor we saw was Molly Sugden in a show called Are You Being Served? It was a British comedy set in a department store that our family adored. I still think it's hilarious today. My mum's diary reported our Venice stay as well, just briefly. To Venice by bus and then by boat. Trip to Glassworks Murano. Really interesting, but very expensive and a bit pushy. Looked at St. Marco's Square, etc. and gallery. Few ferries and home. Sue and Ron and Sarah from Florida came back too, and we all had a chat and a wine. A good night. I hadn't remembered, but Venice is obviously where I met Sarah, my then pen pal for many years from that point. I must try and find her again. So preparing this episode really reminded me that one of the best parts of travel is the people you meet along the way. My mum's diary records a new set of friends at basically every caravan park. Often it was other Australians, but also plenty of other nationalities too. We had an Australian flag sticker on our motorhome camper van, so I think that made it really easy to meet other Aussies. And quite a number of places we visited came out of recommendations from these people we'd met. You know, there was no internet back then, so those caravan park chats were pretty important. I also think that during this second month of travelling, we kind of settled into travel mode, got used to van life, had some kind of routine. I mean, as much as you can, I guess, when you're moving on every few days. Some of you also asked, by the way, about my sister and I missing so much school. But actually, I wanted to explain we were able to access a distance education program through the WA Education Department. We took packages of work and had an allocated teacher back in Perth. So we usually sat in the van at the table in the back of the van and did some schoolwork each day. But of course, we learnt way more just by our daily travel experiences. But doing the distance education was what meant that we could be out of school in Australia for 6 months. So there you go. So next month, in the third episode of the Van Life Diaries Europe 1985 series, we travel to Switzerland, Austria and Germany. And I can't wait to share it all with you. Big thanks to Context Travel, the series sponsor, for their support in creating these special podcast episodes. You can find out more about their tours at contexttravel.com or find them under Context Travel on your social media platform of choice. If you want to try a Context tour yourself, you can get a 15% discount by using the code ThoughtfulTravel when you book online. Thanks so much for listening to episode 351 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Massive thanks to my dad for sitting down with me to chat about our long ago trip. You can find some of his photos in the show notes and they'll also be all over my social media. There's so much fun to share. Don't forget, you can also see more in the Facebook or LinkedIn groups for Thoughtful Travellers, or sign up for the Thoughtful Travellers newsletter at Substack, which is at thoughtfultravel.substack.com. All of this and more in the show notes. For this episode, you can find them at notaballerina.com/351. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.